Chancellor, may I now take this opportunity to introduce today's occasional speaker, Dr. Joe Lukins. Dr. Lukins is Director of Dr. Joe Lukins Proprietary Limited and is an Adjunct Associate Professor at James Cook University. Dr. Lukins spends her day inside the heads of individuals, teams and organisations, seeking to understand what makes them tick and assisting them in reaching their potential. Studying her initial degree in psychology at James Cook University, Dr. Lukins developed a passion for understanding people and teams and working with them to reach their potential. She commenced a research and teaching position within the School of Psychology in 1991 and then moved to the Institute of Sport and Exercise Science in 2004. This position fired her curiosity for understanding how people think and spanned areas including research, design, sports psychology and high performance. When the North Queensland Cowboys entered the National Rugby League in 1995, Dr. Lukins was appointed as the inaugural sports psychology consultant for the team, a position she's held since 1996. Her expertise in sports psychology has been recognised nationally and internationally by sporting teams and the Australian Defence Force. In addition to her work with the North Queensland Cowboys, she's the current mental skills coach for the Melbourne Boomers in the Women's National Basketball League and the Orchids, a Papua New Guinea National Women's Rugby League team. She regularly consults with the Australian Defence Force and delivers training to soldiers in resilience and high performance. Dr. Lukins is a best-selling author, having written The Elite Think Like an Athlete, Succeed Like a Champion in 2019, In the Grandstands, Champion Your Team Through the Tears and Triumphs of Sport in 2020, and The Game Plan in 2022. Dr. Lukins received a Bachelor of Psychology with Honours from James Cook University in 1992, a Graduate Certificate of Education Tertiary Teaching Award in 1994, and a Doctor of Philosophy in 2005. Dr. Lukins was awarded an Outstanding Alumni by James Cook University in 2016. Chancellor, I take much pleasure in inviting Dr. Joe Lukins to deliver the occasional address.
Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor and President, Deputy Chancellor, members of Council, members of staff, distinguished guests, the fabulous family and friends of our graduates, and to our wonderful graduates. May I commence by offering my hearty congratulations to all of you who have crossed the stage this afternoon. I've been fortunate to spend my career working with high performers, and I know what it takes for you to set a goal, chase after it with perseverance and determination, and overcome challenges along the way. Your success is celebrated today with your colleagues, the university community, your family and friends, and I'm grateful to be here to share your achievement and success. It's also an honour for me to be here as I have over 30 years of my own life linked closely with JCU. Now you might think for someone with a sports psychology qualification that came about from a well-developed goal and plan and was all part of my formative thinking in my early years. But in fact, nothing could be further from the truth. My journey with JCU happened by accident. And in fact, were it not for a serendipitous moment many years ago, may not have happened at all. In 1996, Gwyneth Paltrow starred in a very popular movie called Sliding Doors. It's a story of how in a moment, in her case, catching or missing a train, can define your future forever. Now, there's a good chance for the graduates that you probably didn't see this movie the first time around, but I'm very sure that your parents might be able to tell you a little bit about it. Regardless, I think most of us are aware of the thesis. I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, and in my early teen years, I was convinced of my conviction around my future career, and that was to join the Queensland Police Force, a career that is well established and regarded within our community, and I think sits very close to our hearts, particularly this week. My parents would drive me to Brisbane yearly, and I would go to the QPS open days to find out just how I was going to forge my career with the Queensland Police Service. In 1987, my grade 12 year, I unknowingly experienced a sliding doors moment that would change the trajectory of my life moving forward. So Mum and I were walking across the campus in between two lectures, and coming towards us in the opposite direction was a police officer. And he stopped mid-stride and he pointed at me and he said, "What are you doing here?" And with all the courage I could muster, I said to him, "I'm coming to join the police force." And he looked at me again and he said, "So what degree are you going to do?" And I went, "Oh, do I need to do a degree to join the police force?" I wasn't aware of this information. And he looked at me even closer and he said, "You do." Which was probably a fair point. I was 16 at the time and I probably looked 12. So I asked him, "Well, what sort of degree should I do?" And he said to me, "I don't know, something to do with people. Anyway, good luck." So a week later, I found myself in the office of my school guidance counsellor, trying to find out what this people degree might look like. He sat across from me with his QTAC book in his hand, thumbed through it and said to me, "What do you think about psychology?" And I said, "I think that sounds like people." And he said, "It is." I said, "Good. Well, what about that then? Whereabouts do I go to do psychology?" Bearing in mind I was on the Sunshine Coast. He leafed back through his QTAC book and he said to me, "JCU, you need to go to Townsville." So in 1988, here I arrived with my suitcase and my push bike and moved into St Mark's College. So for any of you who've lived through the university colleges and perhaps have heard the historical story of the time that the students at St Mark's College acquired the bongo van from St Paul's College and maybe repainted it in our Harlequin colours and then towed it to a football game, I can share that account with you after the ceremony. I attended my psychology tutorials on the far side of the ring road in demountable buildings. A trip to the then Nathan Plaza for a roast beef and gravy roll was a decadent weekly treat, and Central Lecture Theatre was palatial. We had our lectures delivered to us on overhead transparencies. They really were the good old days. So why do I share my journey to commence my studies at JCU? Because our lives are full of sliding door moments. Deciding to study at JCU is a significant decision that you have made that will forever map the course of your life. In your years of study, the small moments, you sat down in a lecture next to someone who's now a lifelong friend, you passed a flyer in a corridor that led you to take some action, you stumbled across an article that caused you to ask a curious question and has now led you down your pursuits in your research. You complete your graduating program with new knowledge, friendships, connections and opportunities. I wonder how many of those were influenced by sliding door moments. My career has twisted and turned as I've found ways to work in the field that I love, taking on challenges with a deep breath and plunging in, sometimes getting it right, other times learning a valuable lesson. And so 8 months ago, I found myself with a new job title, the Mental Skills Coach and Wellbeing Manager for the Papua New Guinea Orchids. Last month, the Women's National Rugby League team competed in the Rugby League World Cup in the United Kingdom. Those 23 incredible athletes came from diverse backgrounds, from Australian-based players with PNG heritage and to PNG-based players who have lived in the Highlands all their life, and this was their first trip ever overseas. The Orchids competed in the first World Cup in 2017 and lost every game. The campaign was tough, and the reactions to their performances were often not supportive nor kind. So with the opportunity to put the players through a professional program and a professional campaign, we took them to what it would be to play rugby league on the world stage. We challenged them with staying in extended time away from home and from family and managing the human factors of living in a hotel for 6 weeks with your sisters. So one evening, 3 days before our game against host nation England, one of our players had a medical issue. It was sufficient that if the medical issue didn't receive some attention, she may not be able to play in our game against England. The allocated doctor that we had with us for the campaign lived over 2 hours' drive away, so it was left to one of our staff members to help the player to navigate the NHS in the UK and help the player to get some treatment. It's probably also worth noting that our staff member was undergoing their own postgraduate studies at the time of the campaign and had just pulled an all-nighter the night before to get an assignment finished. Now, I know graduates, none of you know what it's like to stay up all night to complete a piece of assessment, but take it from me that our staff member was highly fatigued. So for the next 2 days, the player and the staff member visited various medical clinics and departments, many in the early hours of the morning, sitting and waiting for hours at a time to seek the help that they needed. On day 3, after 5 hours of sitting at a walk-in clinic, they were seen and then asked, "Have you brought your medical dressings with you for the appointment?" Our staff member didn't even know that they were supposed to have them, so they hadn't brought them. And not only that, they then found out that the medical dressings that they needed to be prescribed by script. You couldn't get them in every pharmacy in town, and it was going to be very difficult for her to get them that afternoon. So, described with her hands on knees, unsure whether to scream or cry, our staff member stood and contemplated for a few moments what on earth was going to happen next. And that's when they heard the accent. "Are you all right?" She turned around and she saw a doctor, an Aussie doctor. "No, I'm actually not all right," was something close to the answer. So our new medical hero, let's call him Dr. Legend, then offered assistance. He wrote the script, he went in his lunch hour to the pharmacy that did hold the dressings, acquired them for us, came back to the clinic, attended to our player, remedied the issues that needed to be fixed, and then offered to return to our camp the following Sunday in the morning to assist the player further. So in PNG, the Tokpisin word for gratitude with joy is hamamas. And it was with great hamamas that we welcomed Dr. Legend into our camp. Where we could, we gifted as much Orchids apparel as we could find between us and tickets for our game against England for him and his family. Now, Dr. Legend had lived in England for 13 years and told me how much he loved Australia, but particularly how much he missed his hometown of Townsville. So Dr. Legend used to live on Thuringowa Drive when it was the end of town, and he used to spend his weekends at the Willows water slides, for those who go that far back. So, my sliding doors story of a chance meeting with a kind Aussie doctor isn't just how he got an Orchids player onto the field at a World Cup. Dr. Legend and his family came to our game. His young teenage daughter, not particularly fussed with sport, but came nonetheless wearing her Orchids jersey. She sat up in the stands and watched the games with her family. She watched our team giving their all. We lost the game. At the end of the game, she turned to her parents and she said, "You know, one day I want to be strong like an orchid." So we may never know whether on the 9th of November this year, a young girl went with her family to the football and simply enjoyed a game, or perhaps she found new role models that might change her life forever. The point of the story of several arduous days navigating the national health system in the UK was not to highlight our sliding doors moments, but those that can be created for others by passionate professionals. The police officer I met for a chance 30-second conversation in 1987 will have no idea of the influence that he has had on my life. The 23 Orchids players last month experienced a monumental sliding doors moment, making the semi-finals of a World Cup. Their lives have changed forever. And perhaps a young girl in England is considering her life through the lens of strong female role models who succeed through their strength and determination. Moving forward into this next stage of your career, you will provide sliding doors moments for those who crossed your path. With your collective expertise in nursing and midwifery, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, psychology, speech pathology, sport and exercise science, and science, you will influence the lives of others for the better. Your colleagues, clients, patients, and the research that you conduct in the years to come will have a ripple effect like a stone on a pond. You will make a difference in the lives of other people, and that is a true gift. Your career, for whatever twists and turns it will take, will offer you challenges that will make you richer for the experience. I encourage you to take on the challenges, particularly the ones that scare you a little. Be curious and courageous through your career and take comfort that every expert was once a beginner. It's okay not to know, to be uncertain, and to feel uncomfortable in moments, because that is where the learning and growth occurs. In closing, I thank JCU with Hamamas for accepting the enrolment of a 17-year-old that through the twists and turns of my life and the last 34 years places me here to congratulate and offer my good wishes to the academic staff who have taught our graduates, to the family and friend who have supported you along the way, and to all of you graduating today as you deservedly celebrate your success. I hope you have a wonderful career full of sliding doors moments.